Supreme Commander Zekthul had conquered 17 star systems, enslaved 43 species, and broken the minds of countless prisoners. His chitinous exoskeleton bore the scars of 1,000 battles, and his 6 red eyes had witnessed empires crumble at his feet. Yet as he stared through the reinforced plasma barrier at the human sitting calmly on the floor of the detention cell, something unprecedented stirred within his predatory consciousness. Uncertainty. The human called himself Marcus Chen, though Zekthul cared little for the naming conventions of what should have been just another broken slave. For 3 standard cycles, the Overlord had subjected this particular specimen to every torture technique in his vast arsenal. Nerve disruptors that could drive a Calaxian berserker to madness. Psychic probes that had shattered the collective consciousness of entire hive mind colonies. Memory extractors that could reduce a Valdorian philosopher to a drooling shell. The human had endured them all. Not only endured, he had begun to adapt. Fascinating, Marcus said, his voice carrying that insufferable calm that had begun to eat at Zekthul's composure. Your neural disruptor operates on a frequency of approximately 847.3 terahertz. That's remarkably similar to the pattern we use for deep space communication arrays back home. Zekthul's mandibles clicked in irritation. The human shouldn't be capable of coherent analysis after the morning session. The device had been calibrated specifically for human neural patterns, based on data extracted from the dozen other specimens, who had preceded this one into the torture chambers. Those others had broken within hours. You speak as though you still have a home to return to, Zekthul hissed through the intercom. Your pathetic world burns under my fleet's weapons. Your species kneels before my empire. Marcus tilted his head with genuine curiosity. Do they? Last I checked, humans have a rather poor track record with the whole kneeling thing. We're stubborn that way. The Overlord's primary arms flexed, razor-sharp claws extending and retracting in a rhythm that betrayed his growing agitation. In the beginning, this had been routine, another primitive species to be broken and absorbed into his war machine. Humans had shown promise as soldiers. Their aggression and adaptability made them useful. But they required proper conditioning first. The conditioning process had always worked before. Tell me, Marcus continued, settling into a more comfortable position against the cell wall, how many species have you conquered by breaking their will? 43, Zekthul replied automatically, then cursed himself for responding at all. And how many of them fought back after you broke them? The question hung in the recycled air like a challenge. None, of course. That was the point of breaking them. A broken mind couldn't organize resistance, couldn't inspire others, couldn't adapt and overcome. I've been thinking about that, Marcus said, as though he had heard Zekthul's thoughts. You see, you've made a fundamental error in your understanding of human psychology. You assume that breaking us works the same way it works for other species. Over the next several hours, Zekthul found himself drawn into conversations he never intended to have. The human spoke of adaptation, of humanity's history of survival through catastrophe. He talked about how humans had crawled out of ice ages and plague years, how they had turned every setback into a stepping stone. We don't break the way you think we do, Marcus explained during one session. When you push us to our limits, when you strip away everything we think we are, you don't destroy us. You force us to discover what we really are underneath. The torture sessions began to feel different. Where once Zekthul had been the predator dissecting prey, now he felt like a scientist studying an increasingly dangerous specimen. Marcus began predicting the torture methods, analyzing their effectiveness, even suggesting improvements. If you adjusted the frequency modulation by about 15% and added a psychological component, maybe images of human suffering, you'd probably get better results, Marcus said after one particularly intense session with the neural disruptor. Zekthul found himself implementing the suggestions, then immediately questioning why he was taking advice from his prisoner. The breaking point came on the 7th cycle. Zekthul had decided to try a different approach, sensory deprivation, combined with isolation. Humans were social creatures. Surely removing all stimulation and contact would succeed where pain had failed. When he checked on Marcus after 3 days of absolute darkness and silence, he found the human engaged in what appeared to be a complex mathematical proof, scratching equations into the cell floor with his fingernail and talking himself through advanced physics concepts. "Oh, hello there," Marcus said cheerfully when the lights came on. "I've been working on the propulsion equations for your ships. I think I've figured out how to improve your hyperspace efficiency by about 30%. That night, Zekthul found himself unable to enter his regeneration cycle. His mind churned with questions that had no answers. How could a species be simultaneously so fragile and so indestructible? How could breaking them only make them stronger? The final revelation came when Marcus asked to see him face to face. "You're afraid," the human observed when Zekthul finally entered the cell personally. "You've realized that you can't break us, and now you're wondering what that means for your empire." Zekthul's claws extended involuntarily. "I fear nothing." "Everyone fears something," Marcus said gently. "The question is, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? You've built your entire civilization on the assumption that every species can be broken. But what if you found one that couldn't be?" The Overlord's mind raced through the implications. If humans couldn't be broken, if they only grew stronger under pressure, if they adapted to every torture and turned every weapon against their captors. "You're not trying to break me anymore, are you?" Marcus asked. "You're trying to understand how to break my entire species. The problem is you've already given us everything we need to defeat you." "What do you mean?" Marcus smiled, and for the first time, Zekthul saw something predatory in the expression. "You've shown us your technology, your methods, your psychology. You've taught us how your empire works, how you think, how you operate. Every torture session was a lesson, and humans are very good students." In that moment, Zekthul understood with crystalline clarity that he had made a fundamental error. He had assumed that breaking individuals would break the species. Instead, he had taken humanity's greatest weapon, their ability to learn, adapt, and grow stronger through adversity, and given it detailed intelligence about his empire's weaknesses. Marcus stood up slowly, his movements fluid and confident. "The really beautiful part is that this conversation is being recorded by your own surveillance systems. And humans, well, we're surprisingly good at hacking alien technology when we put our minds to it." The lights in the detention center flickered once, then twice, then went out entirely. In the darkness, Zekthul heard the distinctive hum of force barriers powering down throughout the facility. "Thank you for the education, Overlord," Marcus said, his voice now coming from the corridor outside the cell. "We'll be sure to put it to good use." As alarms began blaring throughout the command ship, Supreme Commander Zekthul realized with growing horror that in trying to break one human, he had given humanity the keys to breaking his entire empire. The last thing he heard before the human resistance stormed the bridge was Marcus Chen's voice over the ship's communication system, speaking to what must have been thousands of human prisoners throughout the fleet. "Class is now in session. Today we're going to learn about xenobiology, fleet tactics, and the proper technique for liberating a galactic empire. Please take notes."